everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and I know you've probably been watching a lot of the news and you've seen all the different reports on the Kavanaugh situation and listening to their testimony in the hearing and everything like that. Well, I'm going to give you a little different perspective on this, because I think there are some things we need to keep in mind when we're listening to testimony from two parties like this, and there's really no evidence to corroborate either one. We have nothing to really show whether what was being said on either side is true. We have indications, but there's no definitive it was definitely this way. We have evidence to prove this, or we have evidence to prove that. Let's look at some of these things. Now, I have a couple of TED Talks, little clips out of them that I want to show you. And then I have another clip later on that I want to show. And I'll give you my opinion, of course, later on. But I want to get these out of the way. I want you to see what these people have to say. These are TED Talks, which are experts that talk about certain areas. This particular one is Elizabeth Loftus, who is talking about how reliable is your memory. Now, I'm not going to show the whole video, but I'm going to show a little portion of it. I will leave a link down below so you can watch the entire video. I thought it was a very interesting video. It's not very long, and something you might want to look into if this topic interests you, because her whole talk I thought was very informative. And then there's another one that you'll see that I think is very eye-opening too. So without further ado, here's the first clip.
Many people believe that memory works like a recording device. You just record the information, then you call it up and play it back when you want to answer questions or identify images. But decades of work in psychology has shown that this just isn't true. Our memories are constructive. They're reconstructive. Memory works a little bit more like a Wikipedia page. You can go in there and change it, but so can other people. I first started studying this constructive memory process in the 1970s. I did my experiments that involved showing people simulated crimes and accidents and asking them questions about what they remember. In one study, we showed people a simulated accident, and we asked people how fast were the cars going when they hit each other. And we asked other people how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other. And if we asked the leading smash question, the witnesses told us the cars were going faster. And moreover, that leading smashed question caused people to be more likely to tell us that they saw broken glass in the accident scene when there wasn't any broken glass at all. In another study, we showed a simulated accident where a car went through an intersection with a stop sign, and if we asked a question that insinuated it was a yield sign, many witnesses told us they remember seeing a yield sign at the intersection, not a stop sign. And you might be thinking, well, these are filmed events. They're not particularly stressful. Would the same kind of mistakes be made with a really stressful event? In a study we published just a few months ago, we have an answer to this question. Because what was unusual about this study is we arranged for people to have a very stressful experience. The subjects in the study were members of the U.S. military who were undergoing a harrowing training exercise to teach them what it's going to be like for them if they are ever captured as prisoners of war. And as part of this training exercise, these soldiers are interrogated in an aggressive, hostile, physically abusive fashion for 30 minutes. And later on, they have to try to identify the person who conducted that interrogation. And when we feed them suggestive information that insinuates it's a different person, many of them misidentify their interrogator, often identifying someone who doesn't even remotely resemble the real interrogator. And so what these studies are showing is that when you feed people misinformation about some experience that they may have had, you can distort or contaminate or change their memory. Well, out there in the real world, misinformation is everywhere. We get misinformation not only if we're questioned in a leading way, but if we talk to other witnesses who might consciously or inadvertently feed us some erroneous information, or if we see media coverage about some event we might have experienced. All of these provide the opportunity for this kind of contamination of our memory. In the 1990s, we began to see an even more extreme kind of memory problem. Some patients were going into therapy with one problem, maybe they had depression, eating disorder, and they were coming out of therapy with a different problem. Extreme memories for horrific brutalization, sometimes in satanic rituals, sometimes involving really bizarre and unusual elements. One woman came out of psychotherapy believing that she'd endured years of ritualistic abuse, where she was forced into a pregnancy and that the baby was cut from her belly. But there were no physical scars or any kind of physical evidence that could have supported her story. And when I began looking into these cases, I was wondering, where do these bizarre memories come from? And what I found is that most of these situations involved some particular form of psychotherapy. And so I asked, were some of the things going on in this psychotherapy, like the imagination exercises, or dream interpretation, or in some cases hypnosis, or in some cases exposure to false information, were these leading these patients to develop these very bizarre, unlikely memories? And so what these studies are showing is that you can plant false memories and they have repercussions that affect behavior long after the memories take hold. Most people cherish their memories, know that they represent their identity, who they are, where they came from. And I appreciate that. I feel that way too. But I know from my work how much fiction is already in there. If I've learned anything from these decades of working on these problems, it's this. Just because somebody tells you something and they say it with confidence, just because they say it with lots of detail, just because they express emotion when they say it, it doesn't mean that it really happened. We can't reliably distinguish true memories from false memories. We need independent corroboration.
So very interesting. The memory's not quite as stable as maybe you thought it was, right? Well, here's the next clip that I want to share with you. And this is another TED Talk with Scott Fraser, and I believe he's a forensic expert. He actually corroborates what she just said, so I think it's an interesting back-to-back. He gives a very excellent example in his talk, and I really want you to hear it.
We know that eyewitness identifications are fallible. The other comes from an interesting aspect of human memory that's related to various brain functions, but I can sum up for the sake of brevity here in a simple line. Right? The brain abhors a vacuum. Under the best of observation conditions, the absolute best, we only detect, encode, and store in our brains bits and pieces of the entire experience in front of us. And they're stored in different parts of the brain. So now when it's important for us to be able to recall what it was that we experienced, we have an incomplete, we have a partial store. And what happens? Below awareness, with no requirement for any kind of motivated processing, the brain fills in information that was not there, not originally stored, from inference, from speculation, from sources of information that came to you as the observer after the observation. But it happens without awareness such that you aren't even cognizant of it occurring. It's called reconstructed memories. It happens to us in all the aspects of our life all the time. Let me ask you to consider the horrific events of 9/11. Think about when you first got the information about this catastrophe, how you felt, and more importantly, when was the first time you saw the second trade tower implode and collapse after the first trade tower had gone down? If you're like most Americans, myself included, you have a very clear memory that you saw the first tower come down and then you saw the second tower finally collapse after the other plane crashed into it within an hour or two afterwards. I remember vividly where I was. I was down at LAX at the satellite terminal for American Airlines, waiting to get on an airplane to fly to San Diego. And of course, all the air traffic was ceased. And so I had nothing to do but to sit and watch the television monitors with all of the news broadcasts over and over and over again of the horrendous events. And I know I saw that second trade tower come down an hour or two after the first. And all of the research we have indicates that most Americans too, except for a few people who happen to live in certain places in New York, right? And you know something? That's a totally false memory. It could not be something you experienced. There was absolutely no media footage of the second trade tower collapsing until over 24 hours after the event. But in fact, you know intellectually, cognitively, that they did occur fairly close in time. You did know about and see the first one. You did see the second one. But you didn't see it until over a day later at the earliest. But the brain, without you being aware, has pulled them together and you believe you saw them very close in time. It is a reconstructed memory, not an accurate memory, no matter how vivid, no matter how sure you are. We all have to be very careful. All our memories are reconstructed memories. They are the product of what we originally experienced and everything that's happened afterwards. They're dynamic, they're malleable, they're volatile, and as a result, we all need to remember to be cautious that the accuracy of our memories is not measured in how vivid they are, nor how certain you are that they're correct. I'm sure I saw the second trade tower collapse an hour later. But I know it could not have happened.
See, I told you. Isn't that 9/11 thing weird? Because I did the same thing. When he said that, I was like, well, I know exactly where I was when I saw the second tower go down. I could have sworn that's when it was. But the video didn't come out for 24 hours later. That's really weird, isn't it? Just boggled my mind when he said that. Our minds play tricks on us sometimes, and sometimes they do fill in the gaps, like he said. You know, it just was very interesting what he had to say. I will put the link for his entire talk down there because it's really good. You need to listen to the whole thing and listen to the example that he gives. Very interesting talk. I've actually heard it a couple of times. You know, I keep coming back to it, it seems like. But very interesting what he has to say. Now, this third one is a little bit different. This is a lady who does body language. Now, her name is Mandy. I believe her last name is Bombard. That's what her channel used to be called, Bombard, but she has now changed it to Body Language Ghost. So she's kind of redone things because she got a lot of flack from YouTube and she got a lot of flack from people with comments, and so she's just decided to kind of change the way she does things. So she puts little clips here, and then if you're interested in seeing more, you can go to a place where she has a little more control over the material and everything. So anyway, this is one that she does on the body language with Christine Blasey Ford. Very interesting because I had similar reactions when I watched this. For 13 years, I helped run an online biblical counseling ministry. So we helped people who had been through a lot of trauma in their lives. And especially we dealt with a lot of women who had been sexually abused, who were in abusive relationships right then, and we helped them get out. We were kind of like a hotline. And so I have worked with a lot of women who have been sexually abused. And I have a little bit of experience in my past as well. So I'm not speaking from the point of view of somebody who's not knowledgeable on this. When I saw her testimony, things didn't set right with me. I've probably heard the stories of of hundreds of women who have been abused. I've heard their stories. I've heard them tell their stories. They've told their stories to me sometimes for the first time they've ever talked about it. And I know what it sounds like. And I know things to look for. I also know women who have talked to me and who have had those experiences where there are things that don't add up. And there's some questions about what happened. Some of them had these ideas put in their minds by other people. I've seen it happen, okay? I know from firsthand experience it does happen sometimes. I'm not saying all the time. I'm not even saying the majority of the time. But this does happen, that your mind, as we've seen in the other two clips, is not as set in stone as we may think it is. And it's very easy to influence our memories. So I wonder in her case if there is an influencing of memories, or maybe what we're picking up on was something even more. Because if you listen to Mandy here, you'll find out that some of her body language is really a clue to what's going on. And I see so much that's not genuine in her body language. And it bothered me when I was watching it the first time through, and I thought, this is just not ringing true to me. There are things here that don't add up, first of all, and there are things that don't seem consistent with all the other hundreds of stories I've heard. There are items that the woman will say that have a ring of truth to them, and this one doesn't really have that. Now, I'm not sure. I'm not going to say that she did not go through some trauma. Maybe she did. But I think her memory has been manipulated. It's not giving her an accurate view. So take a look at this. Again, I'm only going to play a short clip, and I will link down below so you can watch the whole thing, because they're well worth watching. It's just that if I put all these together, it'd be like an hour and a half long video, and it would take me a week to upload with my slow internet connection. I'm going to give you some pertinent clips, and then you can go and watch the full thing on your own. Here's a little snippet of what Mandy had to say about the body language here.
I nevertheless honored her request for a public hearing. So
he's reading the statement out, and he talks about the other people writing statements, and that her best friend writing a statement, lifelong friend, says it never happened. And she gives a nod and a positive and continues to go. And then he brings up the attorneys, flying her, getting this, so it was a formal way of doing things, someone to interview her. And she just looks over there. Nothing surprising, nothing, oh, I didn't know that. And this is important for later because I already watched this whole hearing. Because at the very end, and we're going to skip to that.
Did anybody ever advise you from Senator Feinstein's office or from Representative Eshu's office to go get a forensic interview?
No.
So should we see her there? She thinks, goes through memory. No.
Instead, you were advised to get an attorney.
And she's going stiff because the rest of this time at this supposed hearing, she's got pretty pose. We'll go over pretty pose, or at least pretty pose in this later.
And take a polygraph. Is that right?
Many people advised me to get an attorney.
There's pretty pose. Head down, wrap the eyebrows, do a little wave.
Once I had an attorney, my attorney and I discussed using the polygraph.
And then we're twisting our chair because we're cute.
And instead of submitting to an interview in California, we're having a hearing here today in 5-minute increments. Is that right?
So she looked towards the committee for that question, which tells me that answer, the true answer, came from that her attorneys weren't involved in that the true power behind where to have this at was from one of the committee members.
I agree that's what was agreed upon by the collegial group here.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay, I have something to submit for the...
And that made her extremely nervous.
So interesting, huh? I think that there's probably something going on here. I don't know exactly what it is. And I know for sure that this whole thing has been played out in a certain way to benefit the Democrats, because we know they could have done this in a way that would not have made it so public for either person. But they chose not to do that, and they sat on the letter for a while, and the accusation, Feinstein didn't even bring it out when she had an opportunity in a private session with him. So there's something definitely that has happened there. I'm not saying she's part of it, but then again, I'm not saying she's not. There are some indications that she may be a CIA agent that she might be one of their operatives. There are some indications that there's a tie between her and Peter Strzok through their relatives. There is more and more information coming out about her all the time. Again, I don't know right now. I can't tell, but from her body language, I was really skeptical. I don't know whether it's true or not that she had a traumatic experience, but I do know from looking at the two of them, all of my senses tell me that Brett Kavanaugh was not the person. If these things were going on and our FBI missed them 6 times, then we have a totally incompetent FBI. So I think that because these are very blatant things, and especially that third one about the rape train, that one is incredible because, first of all, the woman went 10 times. Okay, if I go to a party and I know that's going on, I'm never going back. I would never put myself in that danger, and I would make sure that I told somebody because I wouldn't want any of my friends to end up there. Why would I ever want that? Why wouldn't I stand up to protect other women? I mean, that just seems natural to me. The third one just seems so out of the ballpark that I don't even think it's worth considering. The second one, again, she's not sure. She has this kind of memory. She's not sure it was him, whether he was there or not. The charges are just not strong enough. And this is really what we have to go on. Whether it happened or not, we can't really say because there has to be evidence. This is how our courts work. This is how our laws work. We have the rule of law. We have a law that says we're innocent until we're proven guilty. And we have to extend that courtesy to everyone because if we don't, then we're no better than any other country. This is what makes us stand apart, that we do have a presumption of innocence until proven guilty. So we need to make sure that we are following that, even if we don't like the man, if we don't like what he stands for. We can't base our government on that. And the way that this has been going on with these people making their judgment because of this, it's not the way our country's supposed to work. We have to make sure that if there is no evidence, we really cannot convict. And she has absolutely no one to corroborate anything she said. The only thing she has is her husband can say that, well, she told me this was who it was. But we don't have anything other than her word. She's the one that told other people, and she didn't tell them until several years after it happened. All we have is her word. And you saw in the other clip how memory can be manipulated. I really have a hard time believing what she's saying. And I also know the situation with the Democrats and how they're desperate. If you saw my video on Lindsey Graham, where he asked Kavanaugh questions about military courts and whether traitors can be executed, he was telling the rest of the people in that committee, we know what you've done, and you are going down for it. And I think this whole reaction here, it's so far out of what it should be. It shouldn't be this intense. So there's something else going on than just what we're seeing. Why are these Democrats so passionate about getting rid of Kavanaugh? This would make sense because, see, we need Kavanaugh on the court. Once Kavanaugh is on the SCOTUS, then we have 5 votes if the arrests begin and they go in front of military courts, like Lindsey Graham pointed out is very possible because of the treason charges. Someone is going to challenge that can be done. And when it comes up through the courts, when it gets to the SCOTUS, we have the 5 votes. Kavanaugh will for sure make sure that happens, and that is the stance it will be. Now, as for people saying, well, he doesn't have the mentality of being a Supreme Court justice, I gotta tell you, from my point of view, he has just the mentality. That man, in his opening statement, and if you haven't seen it, you really need to go see that. It was long, but oh wow, he put a lot into that. But in his opening statement, the passion he had there and the resolve he had not to be swayed, no matter what they brought against him, told me that if somebody tries to intimidate him to change his response on something on the court, he's not going to do it. He's going to stand strong on what he believes the Constitution says. I think that's exactly the kind of man we need on our Supreme Court for a very long time, and I hope he's there for 30 years or more. So that's where I stand on it. Anyway, there's the whole thing. Take it for what it's worth, but go check out these videos because I do think that they'll give you a lot of good information and they will give you a different perspective on these kinds of testimonies. The memory is not as stable as we think it is, and it can be manipulated fairly easily. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you later.